Good afternoon, Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Kevin. How are you?
Doing very well. We're getting busy. We're getting
Yeah,
busy. This is all good.
no, that's
So
all
what are we going
good.
to talk
So go ahead.
about? What are we going to talk about today?
All right. So just real fast before we really jump into it, what'd you think of that launch event this morning?
Oh, that's right. It was really good. I liked Walker's what do you call it? The keynote, Industry 4.0 keynote.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
I thought it was really good.
that was amazing. That was super informative. Don't tell anybody I took a lot of screenshots because I have to just go back and study these things
You and
and
me
just
both.
really digest what he's doing. And it seems like we're not the only ones that are doing that.
Uh,
So
Google is
uh,
my first best friend, digitally at least. I have some
yeah,
human best friends, but
of course.
digital best friend, and then Evernote is my second best friend because I record all that stuff in Evernote.
Oh, great. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to. I've worked with Factor Studio and frameworks before. I'm looking to do a lot more with it. It's ready for prime time with all of those. I mean, they really did 8 years of development in the last 2 years, and the stuff that they now have, it's going to be game changing for the industry. So I'm pretty jazzed to be learning all of that in the Frameworks University. So
I agree. I
anyway.
agree. Completely agree.
Anyway, but we'll be working with Ignition today. So what the scenario that we're going to work through here today is that there's an enterprise client and they have a number of different chemical plants that it's part of their enterprise, and they'd like to be able to get all of their tank data into their corporate location. They just want to be able to have a dashboard where they can see exactly what's in all of these tanks. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create the tank levels for all of these. We're going to utilize the Unified Namespace. So we're going to use the ISA 95 structure. We're going to publish that data into an MQTT broker. We are going to take advantage of the Sparkplug B protocol. We're going to present that data here. We're going to create that dashboard using Ignition. And then they also want to historize this as well. So I'm going to use Canary Labs. They also have a Sparkplug B connector, and we're going to historize all the data that pushes in so they can take a look at what's the history of all of the inventory levels and all of these chemical plants. So what do you think?
Nice. So this sounds kind of like some projects we're starting to look at as well. Chemical plants, multiple plants across the U.S. So I'm just going to repeat it, make sure I got it. Enterprise of multiple plants. They want to know inventory levels of the tanks, be able to see them, and also start to historize the data. So you're going to be pulling the data from somewhere, and there's going to be a screen for people to see this data, and then you're going to capture the data for use later on. And
Mm-hmm.
you are, like you said, uh, using the concepts from ISO 95 with that activity hub in the middle. Layers of the automation, data coming from certain layers, the activity hub being the unified namespace. That's where the data is going to go. And then it comes back out to another layer to the screens you're going to be creating in Ignition, right?
Yeah, I have edge nodes publishing to the UNS, and then I have a SCADA and a historian node that are subscribing to that data based on the topics that are there.
Cool.
So just in the middle, it is a Mosquito broker that I'm using. I can do the exact same thing with an EMQ broker as well. That one works well. Actually, I have a cluster, but this one I find it's good for what it is we're doing here. So that's what we're going to use.
All right, let's see it.
Cool. So getting into the project, I've started in Ignition doing a template. So I just have a single tank that I've drawn here. If you go in and look at some of the custom properties you can put, I'm using a concept known as the parent path. And that then allows me to use anywhere that I utilize this topic namespace in trying to draw out a tank, I can use parent path. So that's whatever the source of the data is what that represents. And then I also have a site name that comes in as well. So we'll be utilizing the parent path and the site name throughout. I've also created a drop down up here, and what that allows me to do, it is just I've put in it's a data set that it's going to use. That's purely just 10 tanks, makes it pretty easy. That's, this is a pretty vanilla demo. So we have 10 tanks at all of the site, and then the actual tank icon itself. In doing the level for that, I've actually built in or using an indirect tag to do that. So here on the value, you just click on it. This indirect path, it's a little kludgy, but you can see that I use tanks.parent path, tanks.site name, and then for the actual tank number itself, it's going to be the selected value of the tank. So if you follow this through, it's going to be what's my data source in enterprise, what's the site name, and then I have the actual, so now once we get from enterprise to site to the actual unit. It's the tank farm. We're now into the line. It's going to be tanks. And then what number tank are we actually on? So there's your cell, and then the actual level value itself. So that's what we're going to do.
So that's the unified namespace path.
So that is the unified namespace of that path that's going to come from all of these edge nodes. Now, this is a little bit kludgy. It's not how I'd actually do it in production. I'd have all the tanks and all of that information sitting inside some kind of database. I like to use SQL for these so that when I do everything else, all that information just comes in dynamically. But for this, just to demonstrate the unified namespace and how I'm getting all this tag information put together for the demo, that's what we're doing.
And to be clear too, that unified namespace, that naming convention that you had defined is the convention that comes from ISA 95. Again.
It's the ISA 95, exactly. So it's enterprise, site, unit, line, cell, and that's how you want to follow that all the way through.
Great.
So now I've created my my main tank level here, or I've drawn the one tank that I need to start bringing in. And so I've configured that so that it's going to capture all that information. You can see coming from that template, you now see I have parent path and site name. I already put it in. So it's going to come through my MQTT engine, and we're going to bring in the site name on this particular one happens to be West Park. So the names of my sites, I have South Park, North Park, East Park, and West Park. As we've mentioned, I'm a fan of South Park, so don't hate me for that. But I just thought this made it easy to keep track of everything that's going on.
Just no Cartman jokes on
yeah.
yeah.
I won't do my Cartman imitation. How about that? So, I'm just going to assume that I got all this is all built. I'm actually going to start having this the site. So I'm going to get into South Park. Is going to start publishing data. You'll notice that the tank farm folder now showed up. And so here we are. This is coming from an edge node. G5 is the enterprise. South Park is the plant. We get into the tanks themselves, or into the tank farm. I bring out all the tanks, and now you can see right down here, I'm now getting that level that is right coming through it. All I had to do was get this edge device publishing to my broker, and now all of that information is now readily available right here. So, which is pretty sweet. So real fast, I'm going to change this site that we have over to South Park real fast, just so we can actually start to see that actual level starting to come through. So you can see now that it's no longer red. My mouse likes to disappear. So we're actually dealing with, this is a live value coming from it. You can actually see as that changes, you're seeing the percentage go on. So in order to draw out all my tanks, I'm just going to start doing a bunch of copying and pasting of the tanks through here. And I'll make this very easy to all of a sudden on the screen, I'm going to have 8 tanks. I don't know why that just froze up like that. There we go. Now we're back online. Goofy software. It works perfectly until you start recording the demo and what it is you're doing. So we'll draw out these 8 tanks. I think it's just bringing in that tag is
his name is Murphy. His name is Murphy.
Right. So I think that's just what we're waiting for, is all of these tags to start updating in there, so that they're coming back on. So again, draw out the tanks.
Which means that this is updating live then. I mean, you're going to
this is updating live as I'm dropping these tanks on here. I mean, they're all the same tank number right now. But here I am in South Park. Let's put this into, let's get this finished off. And again, what I mentioned earlier is that if I were doing this in a real production environment, I would actually be using a database like a SQL table to dynamically populate this. So if I only had 5 tanks at one site, I'd only drop 5 tanks on the screen using a template repeater. Where if I had 10 tanks, it'd automatically do that. This seems to be continuing to lose its connectivity. I'm not sure why that's doing that. Let me pull up here and see if that data is coming through right. Everything's coming through like it should. So continues to go out. So we'll put this back into run mode, and then I can actually come in here and start changing up the actual tank numbers themselves. So, there's tank 3, I got tank 6, I have tank, 8. I want to look at, tanks 9 and 10 here, because, these are the critical ones that I want to look at. And again, I could do this dynamically to where all of those tanks are static, but I only have room for 8 tanks. And again, there's 6 tanks that exist out on site. So now you can see all of these screens, and this is all live. This is all updating right as we're doing this. It's given us our tank farm outside of there. So now I'm pretty happy. I'm jazzed. It's okay, great. I need to get this historized. So I'm going to go over into my my Canary. I'm going to get my MQTT collector. I'm going to get that up and running. And then the way that you configure the Sparkplug connector in Canary is you actually go into, it's a MySQL database that they use. So you have to identify the server. So this is my IP address of my Mosquito broker that I'm using. Again, username, password. As we learned last time, I use super secret passwords, so don't tell anybody.
Strongest password I'm looking for.
Right? Yeah, and so then here's what we're going to subscribe to. So the topic path itself, and this is where you would limit what it is that you want to subscribe to in your historian on the historian node. So again, everything publishes to the unified namespace, and now you become a receiver of that information. You're a subscriber to whatever that information is, and within the Canary historian, I can limit to exactly what it is that I want to bring into my historian. So I'm going to set this to where it's now going to auto log all the tags. So anyone that it finds there, it's going to automatically bring into the historian itself. Now we'll go down to the subscription tag, and you can see that we are all of those tank levels we're now collecting. And I should have changed that number before I restarted my historian. So we'll just stop and start that real fast so everything can reset, because right now it just sees that data coming through, but we actually want it, all of this needs to be a 1 coming through. So we'll refresh. And you see how well that worked. So it always works when you do it on the when you do it live. So yeah, I wrote the changes on here. Subscription tags. Well, that should have done what we needed it to do. So we'll go in and we'll just do it the manual way. Probably not a bad way just to show you. So you just need to change all these to 1s, and now it'll start to. So we'll go ahead and restart that again. And that's the neat thing, is if you don't want to have that automatically done, I guess this created a nice opportunity to demonstrate that if you don't have those automatically logged, you can just start and stop the Canary service itself. And something is not liking this. I don't know why that keeps dropping out. So now we'll come over to our actual Canary historian, and we use something called Axiom. And this is their trend. And so now we're just going to add some trends. So we'll come in. This is the SCADA historian, and it's still not reading them. And this always figures. That's, you know what? I bet you if I wrote the changes to the database, that'd make a huge difference on what it's doing. So, all right, we'll go ahead and start it up, and I think we should be good now. So let's just make sure that we're actually collecting those number of tags. Yeah, we're not sending anything yet. We might have to start this over. This was working so slick, and now it's not.
That's okay. Work it through.
Yeah, no, let's, here's where we go. Oh, there's some warnings in here, so let's see what's going on. Yeah, it's on a rebirth. Well, yeah, that should be doing what I needed to do. So hang on a second here, and we'll just recreate the from subscription tags. We'll run that. Oops, subscription tags. There we go. You run that. Write changes. Come back over here to browse data. That should be empty. And then we'll come over here and we'll start and restop the service again. And hopefully this time we get it all fixed. All right, so now we're all enabled, we're running. Come back over here to the historian. And now you can see we have all of these tags that's coming from the SCADA historian. Now we want to be able to see all those levels on a trend screen. So we can bring all those in, take that one out of there. We'll add those. And we'll just close this. And now we can actually go in and we can see the trending or all that data coming in live here in our data historian, all 10 tanks. coming in. You can see exactly what's going on. So put this into actual live mode, and you can actually see those tanks filling and emptying. Again, it's not super fast. These aren't a fast, typically level isn't very fast moving, but now that's what we're seeing.
I can see it coming
So
in.
updating live. So
Nice.
So that's all that it took to do that. So now we're pretty jazzed. We got all of our tanks are now being displayed live in a page. I can go around and I can pick any tank number that I want to see, and it'll update automatically in real time. And you can see right here in a matter of just a few minutes, we've now taken all that edge data. We've published it to a unified namespace using an MQTT broker. We've created all of the tanks here, all 8 of them, and we've published it into a historian, so we can go in and do some taking a look at historical data, historical level inside of a tank. And again, tanks aren't generally very fast moving. You could do this with any type of device, but the power of this is it shows you how quickly we're able to get this up and running. So now the next step is, okay, we got South Park taken care of, but I got 4 more plants. So what's going on over at North Park? What's going on over at West Park? What's going on over at East Park? I need the same chemical data there as well. So we'll go ahead and we'll put those edge nodes online. And again, just imagine the scenario, which you just call up the plant, say, okay, we're ready to go. Go ahead and start publishing to the broker. Let's bring it up here into the, we'll just take a look at it. MQTTFX is just a way to see what's coming in. You can now see North Park, South Park. There should be some others. Now you got some East Park coming in, West Park. Holy cow, we got a bunch of data coming in. So let's go up and see, did all these pop in? Yep, there's our East Park. There's our North Park. And we now have West Park all ready to go. So still in live mode. Well, let's take a look at what's going on over at the North Park plant. Okay, there's all my levels there at North Park. There's all my levels here at West Park. So it's looking pretty good. And again, these are all the same tanks. I can go through and decide what it is that I want to do. See how quickly that happened. And then of course we'll come over. Oh, go ahead.
And why was it so quick? What made it, out of all the tools you're using, open architecture, all this kind of fun stuff, what was it that made it so quick?
Well, so we created we did all the work on the ground correctly, but all we had to do is, because we're using a technology solution and I'm just publishing to it, what made it so fast is all I have to do is put it to a broker. It's now publishing the topics using the ISA 95 structure. This system is subscribing to those. Again, that's what we did in that this template over here that we first started using, to where now the level on all those tanks, it's just following the parent path. It is following the site name, and then everything is built out through the tank number itself. So that's what made it so fast. It's that data structure.
In a different way. So you have the edge devices, you had them publishing into the unified namespace. So you set up that basic architecture, if you will,
Yes.
already using the
Yeah.
unified namespace and the right paths. And then the first thing you did when you were working in Ignition then is to set up one screen for, I think it was South Park was the first one.
Yeah.
And then you showed
Go
that,
ahead.
and that's all great. You already had the data going into the unified namespace for the other locations. So then you just change the drop down to select one of the other locations, and bada bing, the data is going into those.
Yeah. So for instance, when I built out these tags here, I only built it once. And then I used I just happened to use Ignition at the edge as well. It doesn't have to be, as long as it supports the Sparkplug and you follow that same structure, you can do the exact same thing. So again, I was just able to import and export all of those tags into every one of my projects, and it was just really a matter of minutes to get all of this done. Assuming that I can get to those sites and do all these things, but I could have just as easily emailed that JSON folder to somebody at the site, and they just had to put this in their import the tags in, and we'd have been rocking and rolling. Assuming that you had the data connection into that actual level tag that's sitting in your PLC.
Right.
So that's what made it fast. So, just really hitting this home, because we're now publishing to it, I just have to read. All I did was refresh the database, and you can now see every one of those tags have been brought in to my Canary historian, and I can go to the Axiom. So it's all web-based. And now if I want to add some more pens to this, now I can choose, okay, I want to see some East Park, and I want to see some North Park. And I think you get the idea here. Let's get into some West Park tanks. And now I can actually see these. So let's add and close. Now we're going to bring all of those tags in. And now you can see exactly at what point I started to bring all this data in. It's historized it. I have all of that data is now just feeding right to it. So right here in a matter of 15 minutes, I was able to connect and publish all this data to a Mosquito broker. I was able to display it in a SCADA screen, and I was able to historize it just by having that technology be a subscriber. So when we talk about a unified namespace sitting in the middle, that's exactly what we've done. It's the technology. And I know I did this ignition. I think we're going to revisit this topic in the future. I can do the exact same thing in Factory Studio because it has the same concept as templates. It supports the Sparkplug B, and I can create these screens and draw them out very quickly. If you wanted to use a different historian, you just pick a different historian and subscribe to it. If you want to do some data analytics on it, just have the data analytics, whatever that solution happens to be. You just need to subscribe to the namespace that makes sense. Again, that we're looking at here. This is what Canary is looking at. G5 from South Park, tank farm, tanks, tank 2, level. And I could have temperature on tank 2. I could have pressure on tank 2. I can have any tag value that I want off of any of those tanks are going to come through and get published right into this broker.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
Flexible.
Pretty sweet. Yeah.
Scalable.
Absolutely. And if you remember, a while back, we did that video on utilizing the creating a work order from the edge. So again, we're using a Groove Rio, and we published we generated a work order based off of a pressure switch that said you need to come change the filter, or we had a high vibration level. I've also published that here. It's in a different namespace. So now again, I have G5. It's at the South Park plant. This is in my utilities area. And this is how the Groove itself comes through. It's the Opto MMP. You got your modules, you got your channels, and there's my pressure switch. And it looks like I need to get that this system back online because it's showing up as red. So let's go ahead and close that contact. And now you can see, here we go. State now, I know that I created a work order in that system. So there's the state that comes through as well. We also have this vibration sensor. Right now, let's go ahead and get that into actually publishing. And now you can see that the value there, I can adjust it up and down. And now it's online, and I'm pulling all that data through. So again, completely different device publishing to the namespace that now gives me information of what's going on in my plant. So again, I can see that the counters come off. Looks like the Mosquito broker's having some trouble. That's why those values keep dropping in and out. So it's unusual. It always happens when you're trying to show something off. But here you are again, sitting right here in the same system. I'm now able to bring in a completely different edge device that's in my utilities area and pretty much do the exact same thing with it. And I'm not, that particular is not, it's publishing to a different broker, so I'm not able to bring it into my Canary historian, but I easily could. And then you'd be able to see exactly how often, what that vibration looked like over time as well. Pretty sweet, huh?
Yeah. Again, the words that keep coming back to mind are flexible, scalable, and fast. Also fast for setting this kind of stuff up too.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you got to get it set up right on the front end. But once you do that and follow, use a unified namespace, following the ISA 95, the rest of this almost becomes an academic exercise.
Yeah. Then it's a matter of what colors to pick on the screen. That's the biggest decision.
Pretty much. Yep. It's almost like picking your furniture. What do you want it? What do you want the pattern to be?
I don't get to make those choices. I got married. Well, all of my furniture went out the door, and her furniture came in. It's all good. Anyway, that's a whole other story.
Yeah, sure is. So anyway, that's really all we had for today. Any questions, things that, hey, let's go visit that again.
Yeah, do I have any questions? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
No, I think just kind of summarizing again, it's the enterprise chemical company with the plants and inventory levels and seeing the inventory levels and historizing it. You've done it with the edge devices, bring it in. Data's going through the MQTT broker into the unified namespace. and then you were pulling the data out of that unified namespace in this simple, straightforward SCADA system you built in Ignition,
Mhm.
and you're also historizing the data with Canary as well. I mean, that.
Yeah. Yeah, and real fast. And this is something that, maybe is not a best practice, but there's actually some relays on that, and I can actually turn those relays off and on. Let's turn this communication on real fast. There's actually relays that I can actually start and stop equipment remotely from it as well. And my Mosquito brokers, my brokers, it's being funny. I'm not sure why this is not doing its thing, but I can actually turn things on and off remotely. But beauty, it's not going to demonstrate that today. So what do you do?
It's all good. We got a lot done already.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Good. Dave, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. For everybody watching this video, feel free to subscribe. More videos coming soon.
Yeah, absolutely. What do they always say? You gotta like it and subscribe to it, make some comments. So
Yep, exactly.
thanks again for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Thanks. You too. Have a good one.